Hi, I'm Jack Draper. Shout out to QualityShot Tennis.
Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. We have a semi-final preview to get through. It's Alina Rybakina versus Yelena Ostapenko, and it's going to be a very exciting match, and I'll tell you why. Because both these women hit hard from the back of the court, and I have to say there are going to be a lot of winners, a lot of attacking tennis on display, and I think it's going to be a really, really good match in the end. Before we get into it, though, remember to that like button, do subscribe if you are new, and also do leave a rating or review if you're listening on a podcast platform. Thank you to all our members as well on YouTube. Greatly appreciated. Okay, let's then break down this matchup as we do for most. So first of all, we'll have a quick look at how they've looked this week so far, who they've beaten, and in what fashion. And then we'll also look at the head-to-head between the two players. And finally, what I will do is I'll talk a little bit about how the matchup will hopefully unfold on court, on this slow clay courts at Rome, which might also be quite wet as well, given how the forecast and how the weather's been looking recently in Italy, in Rome. And on top of that, then give you guys my prediction ultimately. So let's get into the matches from each player. First, Rybakina played Paolini and won in straight sets. Kalinskaya retirement there. Also beat Vondrousova in straight sets. I thought that was a really impressive victory because Vondrousova looked good. She'd beaten some good players, including Andreescu in the first round, which I thought was a really good victory. And then, of course, Iga Swiatek yesterday, which was a little bit disappointing in the end because it was 1-2 in that third set and deciding set. But she had to retire because of her left thigh injury. And, she's obviously got her eye on Roland Garros and doesn't want to be injured going into that, which is understandable. Who would have won that? I have no idea. But clearly, Rybakina is showing that even on the clay, she still is a force to be reckoned with. I don't think her weapons are quite as big on the clay, but she has enough. She has enough to compete with the best player on tour on clay. So that to me is an indicator that she can beat anyone on clay on her day. Then for Ostapenko, her run has been very good. She's beaten some fantastic players. Castella, who I thought was, a fantastic win, winning in 3 sets. She's been in really good form recently. Krejcikova, Roland Garros champion in 2021, beat her in straight sets, 7-6, 6-love. And she was actually down as well in that first set and also down that tiebreaker, and then went on to just blitz Krejcikova, beat Rybakina in 3 sets, who of course went deep at Roland Garros last year, and then beat Badosa, who was in great form, beating Ons Jabeur on the way to the quarterfinals, and Ostapenko beat her in 3 sets as well. So she's fought hard to get to this stage, but beaten some really good players on the way to this semi-final. In terms of the matches between the two, well, the head-to-head is actually 2-1 in favor of Ostapenko, but we have to take it with a bit of a pinch of salt because they've never played on clay. So we don't really know what this matchup looks like on clay, which is why it's up to me to try and speculate as to what we might see, and hopefully that unfolds on court. But Ostapenko beat her in Linz in 2019 on an indoor hard court, beat her in straight sets. Then Ostapenko also beat her on the grass in Eastbourne in 2021. Beat her in straight sets, an impressive victory there. And then at the Australian Open this year, Rybakina won, of course, making the final in the end and losing to Sabalenka, and beat Ostapenko 6-2, 6-4. And that was an impressive victory, but a very quick hard court in comparison to a very slow clay court. There's a big difference in conditions and also surface. So where does that leave us then in terms of this match, and how might it play out? Well, I think there's a few factors to cater, and I think one of the biggest things for me is how does Yelena Ostapenko handle Rybakina's serve on clay, and I think she's going to handle it a lot better than she has on the other surfaces that she's played Rybakina, that is grass and hard court. The balls doesn't travel as quickly through the surface. It doesn't pop off the surface as much as it does on say, a hard court or a grass court, yes, Rybakina has a pretty good kick serve, but I don't think that makes up for the speed lost on serve or the potency of serve lost on this surface. I also think there's a big question mark on movement. So I think the serve and return dynamic is massive for sure. And I think if Ostapenko is able to get a lot of returns back into play, I think it puts a lot of pressure on Rybakina. When she made the final of the Australian Open, she was serving at 59% unreturnable serves, which is just ridiculous. I mean, that's incredible. She's nowhere near that on the clay, of course, and that's why it was really no surprise that she hasn't had the best results in the clay court swing so far. But I also wasn't surprised that I think her style generally is very difficult for Swiatek to play against, even on clay. But I do think she's more beatable on the clay, Rybakina. And I do think players that maybe wouldn't be able to play, for example, Ostapenko lost her in straight sets in Australia. I do think she's got a good chance in this match of beating her. And one of those things is, yes, because her serve is blunted somewhat, Rybakina's that is. And I also think she maybe doesn't have a huge amount of tools. Like if you compare, say, a Rybakina to someone like a Jabeur, who's very potent on clay for the most part, she's been injured recently, but let's just take her game and think about it as a whole. She's got a lot of tools. She's got high topspin, variation, backhand and forehand. She's got a very good drop shot. She can come to the net and volley. I don't feel like Rybakina's got that. I think she has a few things she does very well, and she's able to blow a lot of people off court. But if she comes up against someone who disrupts her rhythm, then it could be difficult. And I feel like Ostapenko might have that in her bag. She has that in her arsenal. She has that tool bag of a little bit of unorthodox type of style that can trouble someone like Rybakina. But the serve is a huge thing, and she's still going to get 3 points off it. It's just a question of how she needs to be serving at 60-65% first serves in at least, I would say, against Ostapenko, because Ostapenko is naturally quite a good returner as it is, and on this surface she will stand back and she'll soak it up. So if I was Rybakina as well, I'd try and serve out wide. She's not going to come and serve and volley, but I'll try and drag Ostapenko out, try and give herself opportunities to go hard with the serve +1 into the open court. Ostapenko, I think she moves better than Rybakina on the clay, but she's still not. She's not up there, in my opinion, with the top 5, most athletic players on tour. Like, she's not up there with a Sakkari or a Swiatek, in my opinion. That's not kind of the level that she's at in terms of movement. But the one thing that she is good at is that her natural ability to move on the clay is good in terms of being very comfortable moving across the surface, and that's a positive thing. I feel like Rybakina is not as comfortable still on the clay as she is on other surfaces in terms of movement, and movement is so key, of course, when it comes to this type of high level tennis. Then, so those are the two biggest factors for me. I do think Ostapenko, there's a few things to think about here. I think her second serve is mastered a little bit on the clay because of how slow it is, and she can hit it with a lot of spin, and she can get away with it a little bit. And on other surfaces, I do think it sits up, and she can get punished quite a lot because it's quite a slow second serve as well. However, Rybakina does attack the second serve. Even on clay, we saw her do against Swiatek yesterday. Ostapenko's second serve is not as good as Swiatek's. She needs to be making quite a few first serves as well. We're talking about how Rybakina needs to make 60-65% first serves. I would say similar to Ostapenko similar for Ostapenko, because in all honesty, if she's serving up a high percentage of second serve, she's going to struggle in her service games. She will. Rybakina will attack that second serve, and she was hitting return winners yesterday in some instances, so she's not going to hold back. Then if we talk about the baseline exchanges and how that's going to work out, as I said, I don't think Rybakina has a variation from the back of the court, but it doesn't include things like drop shots or approach shots coming to the net a lot. It's more about angles, it's more about depth and precision and a little bit of variation in terms of, say, height over the net and also topspin, etc. as well. With Ostapenko, there's a little bit more on the tool bag. She doesn't hit quite as cleanly, you'd say, from the back of the court, but she does hit big. Maybe not as consistent in the ground strokes at times, but she has the big weapons from the back of the court, the dry backhand, dry forehands, and can hit winners off both wings. But she also has the slicing, dicing as well. She can slice from the back of the court quite effectively, hit the drop shot. She can come to the net. She can hit with a lot more coverage and almost, moonball at times. But she has those types of variations. And I think if I was Ostapenko, I'd be thinking, this is a surface that I'm a lot more comfortable on than Rybakina. I've won a Grand Slam on this surface. How do I make her feel uncomfortable? Well, what I need to do is utilize the different variety that I have in my game to make sure that Rybakina is not able to get into a rhythm. Because if Rybakina gets into a rhythm, that's when it becomes difficult. If Ostapenko is able to make her feel uncomfortable, as I said, Rybakina is not the best mover on clay, and I don't think she's the best mover on tour either. So if I was Ostapenko, I would be trying to use my angles, drag her out as much as possible, get her into uncomfortable positions on the run, and also not just make her move laterally, but also get her to move forward towards the net as well. Try and drag her towards the net with a drop shot and lob her or pass her and make her feel make her get into positions on the court where she doesn't want to be, where she's uncomfortable. So that's what I feel Ostapenko needs to do, and I think she could do it. But then Rybakina is also a lot more intelligent than maybe people give her credit for. She might be able to figure out how to get around that. And one thing she does very well, and I've seen her do against Swiatek recently, is knowing that she has a bit more time on the clay, which means she can be a bit more precise on the ground strokes. Doesn't necessarily need to hit with more pace, but needs to hit with a bit more precision and depth. And she's added that, and it's been pretty effective, I would say, on this surface. But in terms of prediction, it's a tough one to call. I think Rybakina has been one of the best players on tour this year, alongside, of course, Sabalenka and Swiatek. But Ostapenko, I think there's something about her on clay, and the players she's beaten, they're very good players, in all honesty. So as long as she doesn't have like an injury or fatigue, etc., and they're both playing at their near their best level, I actually think Ostapenko could win this just because of the surface. So I'm going to go Ostapenko in 3 sets. A lot also does depend as well on the Ostapenko that turns up, because she can get bageled or she can bagel someone else. She's that type of player. So if she turns up and Rybakina starts serving really well from the start, it could frustrate her. She could fall away and lose in straight sets easily. But if she's able to get a pretty quick hold on the Rybakina serve in terms of being able to at least make some progress returning it back into play, getting some inroads on Rybakina's serve, then I think we will see a very competitive match. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Who do you think is going to win and why? And we'll see you very, very soon.